Suddenly, something came up behind George and attacked him. Virginia witnessed the attack on her husband. George yelled for Virginia to drive away. Virginia saw her husband fighting with something that did not resemble a human. They issued us some gas masks, which we put on, and I walked over and looked at it. It looked like a praying mantis. To me, it looked like a huge praying mantis, a 7-foot-tall praying mantis with a cape, weird-looking face. Virginia had many questions that were not answered. On August 13th, 2 special agents from the Air Force Office of Special Investigations visited the family. I was one of them. I worked in the Special Projects Branch of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations, codenamed PJ. PJ developed and implemented security policies and procedures for compartmented special access programs. I was a counterintelligence officer at Area 51 during a temporary duty assignment. I had access to highly classified reverse engineering programs at both Groom Lake and Tonopah. Many years ago, in the 1890s up through the 1900s, mines were developed around Nevada. During the mining operations back in those days, miners saw strange lights and balls of lights that were being emitted from the mines. Charles Burnock was a supervisor of a mine in western Nevada. He wrote about seeing balls of light and also flying equipment coming out of some mines. Now, this is in the early 1900s, and UFOs wasn't even a terminology back in those days. Balls of light. In fact, in the early 1900s, we didn't have anything flying other than hot air balloons, no aircrafts. Wright brothers hadn't perfected flight Kitty Hawk yet. So what is that? What did he see? What was that he wrote about in a old mining magazine? Harold Lines was another miner, supervisor, that worked in a mine that was within the Nellis Test and Training Range. He saw some strange things. He talked about it. He talked about it to a number of different people. He even discussed it with a reporter from a San Francisco newspaper that was doing a story in that area about the old 49ers, a group of settlers that were trying to find the Continental Divide. And Harold Lines talked about seeing these strange lights, huge lights, coming out of mines. I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in August of 1985. This family was from North Las Vegas. They decided to camp in a remote area of Nevada. George, the father, read an article about an old mining town in Nevada. George's family consisted of Virginia, his wife, and 2 children, Denise, age 7, and Billy, age 13. The family owned a 1977 Ford station wagon, which was used on this trip. The family left their home in North Las Vegas and drove to Alamo, where George got gas and Virginia picked up a few grocery items. The family arrived at Silver Bowl approximately 3 p.m. in the afternoon. The family set up the tents and prepared for an enjoyable camping adventure. The family found Silver Bowl to be remote, with various old buildings and mine shafts in the area. No other people were at the site. During a tour of the site, the family found a gate leading into Nellis Air Force Base. There was also a sign prominently displayed that stated, "Use of deadly force authorized." That sign went with a warning that unauthorized personnel were not allowed on the base. The family had a fun-filled evening, cooking on a grill, roasting marshmallows, and making s'mores. The family entered their tent and fell asleep at 10 p.m. George was awoken a short time later, hearing voices outside the tent. George got up and walked outside. George observed a military truck parked next to their tent. 2 men wearing military uniforms told George to pack up their belongings and leave the area immediately. George was told that an escaped convict was loose in the area. George woke his family and told them, "Pack up, we have to leave." The military was outside and just warned them that an escaped convict was on the loose. Virginia was concerned as to the reason for them leaving, but George convinced her, we don't have a choice. The military told us to leave, and we have to leave. Now, Virginia, later, when she was interviewed, thought that they weren't on a military base. They were close to it, a few hundred yards from the Air Force Base, but they weren't on the base. They were on BLM property, Bureau of Land Management. Why would they have to leave? George heard a radio voice tell the military men to respond to a Gate 4 ASAP. George had been in the military and knew what ASAP meant. The military men got into their truck and left. The family packed up in about 25 minutes. Once their vehicle was packed, George checked the area to make sure nothing was left behind. George heard a strange screaming voice, but could not determine what it was or the location of it. George walked around the vehicle and opened the driver's door. Suddenly, something came up behind George and attacked him. Virginia witnessed the attack on her husband. George yelled for Virginia to drive away. Virginia saw her husband fighting with something that did not resemble a human. Virginia slid into the driver's seat and drove away. Billy started screaming that something was chasing them. A monster, he said. Mommy, there's a monster behind us. Virginia drove east to Reveille Mill Road, south to Cedar Pipeline Road, and then on to Nevada 375, which is now called Alien Highway, Extraterrestrial Alien Highway. Virginia drove to Alamo and found the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office. Remember, this is in the morning, but no one was there. Virginia found a phone and telephoned the sheriff's dispatch. Virginia explained what had happened and wanted help in finding her husband. A Lincoln County deputy arrived, and Virginia explained to him what had happened. So this Lincoln County Sheriff's deputy drove north to Warm Springs, which was a junction of Nevada Highway 6 and 375. At Warm Springs, two Nye County Sheriff's deputies were waiting. They took a report from Virginia and said they would respond to Silverbow. The Nye County deputies told Virginia to wait there. About 5 hours later, the Lincoln County deputy told Virginia to drive to Tonopah and wait at the sheriff's department for someone to let them in. Now, from that point, or from that location where she was, in Warm Springs, to Tonopah, the city of Tonopah, which was west of Warm Springs, on Route 6, was about 70 miles. At noon, August 12th, a Nye County sergeant and a county chaplain arrived at the sheriff's office. The chaplain told Virginia that her husband was dead. However, the body was taken by the U.S. military for examination. Once an examination was complete, the body would be returned to the family. Virginia and her family obviously got the bad news that her husband was dead. She didn't know how he died, didn't know who killed him, but knew it was tragedy. Virginia had many questions that were not answered. Virginia and her family decided to return home and wait for the authorities to contact them. On August 13th, two special agents from the Air Force Office of Special Investigations visited the family. I was one of them. The agents advised Virginia that George was killed by an escaped convict from the base. The convict was caught and killed by military police. George's body would be returned to a funeral home in North Las Vegas on August 19th. The agents expressed remorse for her loss, but could not answer any further questions at this time. I was there at the house with Virginia. Her kids weren't in the area where we were talking to Virginia. She was despondent, crying, talking about how long they'd been married, her and George, her family, the history of what her plans were in the future. I was heartbroken. But we told her what we knew at the time. Now it was criticized after this incident was first told some years ago, of why I lied to her. Well, I didn't lie to her. I wasn't at the scene of Silver Bow. I hadn't investigated what had happened at this point. I knew something was involved the special access program. I didn't know exactly what, myself or the other agent, who was agent, his last name was Harrison. So we told her what we knew, and I tried to answer all her questions, but she had a lot of questions I just couldn't answer. On August 19th, the U.S. Air Force mortuary vehicle brought George's body to a funeral home. But the mortician told her George's body was in pieces and she should not view it. She immediately became despondent again, upset. Why can't I look at my husband's body? The mortician said, you don't want to see your husband that way. Virginia told the mortician that she wanted an autopsy performed. The mortician handed Virginia a form which stated that an autopsy was performed at Tonopah Field Hospital, Tonopah Test Range, Nevada. According to the form, George's body was found 6 miles inside the base perimeter. Virginia knew that that wasn't right. Virginia had so many questions that must be answered. George was buried on August 21st, 1985. Virginia contacted the Nye County Sheriff's Department and wanted a copy of the report. The Nye County Sheriff's Department advised Virginia that they didn't conduct an investigation and referred Virginia to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Now, you can just imagine the situation Virginia's in. She saw what happened to her husband. She witnessed it. At least from the rearview mirror, something that attacked her husband. And this was outside the base perimeter. Silver Bow wasn't inside. Over the next 6 months, Virginia tried in vain to obtain answers to her questions about her husband's death. The FBI would refer Virginia to the OSI. OSI would not return her calls. Finally, OSI called Virginia and invited her to Nellis Air Force Base. On October 5th, 1985, Virginia drove to Nellis and met with OSI agents. Virginia was told that an escaped convict from Groom Lake Air Force Base had killed her husband inside the test range. The convict was later killed by military police. Virginia told the agents a different story as to what she witnessed. But the agents said that her information wasn't accurate. I wasn't one of those agents at the Nellis Air Force Base office. I wasn't one of them. During this time, I was investigating the incident that happened, which we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. The agent at the OSI office gave Virginia the phone number of the base legal office where Virginia could make a claim against the Air Force. The rest is information I'm going to talk about regarding what Virginia did and what happened to Virginia is sensitive. I'm not going to give their last names. They want to, of course, Virginia has passed away by now. Billy, her son, is still alive, and we're going to talk about Billy in a few minutes. But the Air Force eventually settled with Virginia for some money. Virginia signed a non-disclosure agreement. Virginia never had her questions answered. Virginia passed away from natural causes in 2005. Billy continued the quest for answers. And this is an ironic, unbelievable story that I'm going to tell you right now about Billy. Billy joined the United States Air Force in 1992 and became a security policeman, assigned to where? Nellis Air Force Base. Billy was reassigned to Groom Lake in 1995. Billy's supervisor was a Master Sergeant Grow. Master Sergeant Grow had been assigned to Groom Lake for over 12 years. One night on a late shift, Billy asked Master Sergeant Grow about the incident at 𝗪𝗪𝗧. Without telling Master Sergeant Grow that his father was the one that was killed there, Master Sergeant Grow told Billy about the incident. He related that the incident was classified but involved an escaped visitor. After a puzzled look on Billy's face, Master Sergeant Grow explained that the U.S. government had visitors from other planets in captivity near Papoose Lake complex. One of those visitors escaped and killed a man. Billy asked about the visitor, and Master Sergeant Grow said that after the murder, the visitor was killed. Billy then told Master Sergeant Grow that the man that was killed at 𝗪𝗪𝗧 was his father. Now just imagine what Master Sergeant Grow felt like hearing that information from Billy. Here, this horrible incident happened many years ago. Master Sergeant Grow was involved in the search for this visitor. And now, in 1995, Master Sergeant Grow meets the son of the civilian that was killed. Master Sergeant Grow was heartbroken and said how sorry he was for Billy's loss. Billy did visit the area near Papoose Lake called 𝗪𝗃𝗦𝗧. However, Billy never learned any more about the incident. Billy retired from the Air Force in 2012 and lives in Ohio. On that particular evening, I was awoke by the operations command post at Groom Lake and informed that an incident had happened and that OSI was requested at the scene. So I got up and got into my clothes, and we always utilize a two-man concept, meaning I went next door to my partner's room and knocked on a door and told him to get up, let's go, we gotta go out. We weren't told what it was. And when we got to the security police building on base, we were told that a visitor had escaped. We knew what the visitors were, although I had never seen one, and I didn't have access to 𝗪𝗃𝗦𝗧. And they advised us that they were searching for this visitor. And about an hour and a half later, by this time we were at the OSI office, which is building 435 at Groom Lake, sitting around drinking coffee, waiting for command post to notify us to respond to wherever we were supposed to respond to. And we were then advised the situation had taken place near 𝗪𝗪𝗧, and that there was somebody dead. So we responded to this area. And what had happened is part of what the Air Force told Virginia was truth. The visitor attacked her husband at 𝗪𝗪𝗧, but drug his body into the Nellis Test and Training Range. And the body was found a few miles inside. Now the creature didn't eat George, but he killed him. At that area, the security police had a confrontation with the visitor. Now there were procedures to try to capture this. They had netting and other devices that they could capture escaped visitor. But because of the fact that it had just killed a human, the security police supervisor at the scene, a lieutenant, ordered his men to shoot and kill the visitor, and they did, and the visitor was killed. It was our job to respond and conduct a crime scene investigation and a report. When I got there, this visitor was lying on the ground with a tarp over it. This particular species, when it decayed, it emitted a toxic fumes. And so we had to stay some distance away. But I was able to look at it from a distance and see it. They issued us some gas masks, which we put on, and I walked over and looked at it. It looked like a praying mantis. To me, it looked like a huge praying mantis, a 7-foot tall praying mantis with a cape, weird-looking face, and protrusion as for hands. Now, I'd never seen one before, and I was never briefed into what the species were. I had a lot of questions for the officer who was responsible for maintaining the creature containment or the visitor containment area, but he was very hesitant about telling me everything. He said it's dead, it was a visitor, it was in captivity, and that's about all I needed to know. I noticed that there were shell casings, 5.56 shell casings around the area, and that's the type of ammunition an M16 rifle would carry. The spent rounds were on the ground, and we had to photograph them and marked where each round was, comparison to where the security policemen were shooting and so forth and so on. We did all that. It took us hours to do that. We took photographs. And then we went to Silver Bowl, which was, again, outside the test and training range. There was a Nye County Sheriff's deputy there, and there was a Nevada Game and Fish officer there. There was blood and debris around where this visitor attacked George. And we did a crime scene there, photographing, marking, doing a crime scene sketch and so forth and so on. And then we took all this information, went back and did a detailed report. I mean, a detailed report of what we did and what we, the fact that and the incident occurred. Not sure exactly how this was going to be received by the command people. We had to brief the base commander. And then finally, this investigation lasted several months. Over a period of several months, I think probably in the early part of December of 1985, the report was finalized after we got autopsy results back and other things back. We sent the case to our headquarters in our PJ Bureau, and that's where the case is today. Now, I know the case number, and I've tried to get the case a number of times. The first time I tried to get it, I got 7 pages of nothing but redacted material. Not one word was released. That was only 7 pages. And that's what we call a summary of incident. I knew what it was a summary of the incident, but it was worthless. There was nothing there, not even the case number. The second time, I tried a different way of asking for you through OSI. This time I got back 34 pages. Now, some of those 34 pages were not redacted, but the only thing contained in those 34 pages that were not redacted were just a basic story line about Nellis Test and Training Range, Silver Bowl, Nye County Sheriff's, Lincoln County Sheriff's cooperation, interviewing a game and fish officer. That's it. Nothing other meat. Jump ahead to 2019, some other people within our group submitted a FOIA request. Now this is 2019. I tried in 1993, I tried in 2004, now this is 2019, just a couple years ago. Air Force sends me back a letter saying the incident, this report is properly classified and not releasable. And that's an exemption of a FOIA. I mean, if it's still classified, you're not gonna get anything. So that's what I got back. I got back a letter saying it's properly classified. Now, stop thinking about that. I classified it. It was top secret, code word. They sent me, during my first FOIA request in the 90-something, which meant nothing. The second one was more pages, but again, they didn't give me all of it because the original report was some 100, probably 100 and some pages. I don't remember exact number of pages, but it was at least 100. And now, during this era of disclosure, you ask for this report, and what do they tell you? It's classified, properly classified, and not releasable, period. That's it. Well, I called the FOIA monitor at OSI. It was a female. I talked to her. I told her about my request. She said, yes, I have it right here. I said, and I explained to her, why did they send me parts of it in 1990s and parts of it in 2005, and then now they're telling me it's classified. She said, I don't know. All I am is a FOIA monitor. I said, can I speak to somebody within the Office of Primary Responsibility, OPR? She said, oh, well, I don't know. I can pass your message along. I don't know that they'll talk to you. So I said, well, try it. So I didn't think I'd hear anything back. January of 2020, just before my wife and I were going on vacation, I get a phone call. I look on the caller ID, and who was it? Air Force Office of Special Investigations. What's the branch? Special Projects. I said, wow. I answered the phone. I said, yeah, hello, Richard Doty here. He said, Richard. I said, yes. He said, you probably don't remember me, but I was an OSI agent years ago, and I got out of the OSI as a military man and went back in as a civilian, and now I work in Special Projects. Now, I do remember the guy, vaguely. I mean, I never worked with him, but I remember the name. He said, I understand you want a copy of your report. I said, yeah, I want a copy of this report, and I gave him the file number. He said, that's your report. I said, I know it's my report, but I want to get it so I can talk about it. He said, what do you want to talk about? I said, I want to relate this incident. He said, we can't release it to you. I said, how can you justify it still being classified all these years? He said, I'm not at liberty to discuss that with you on the phone, but you of all people, you worked in this bureau, you of all people would know why it has to be classified. I said, no, I don't. After all these years, some of this can be released. Maybe not the identification of the visitor or talking about George or the family or what happened, but the mere fact that we had something there and an incident did happen should be released. He said, well, good luck with that. We're not going to release it. It's still classified. And you know that if something's properly classified, it's exempt from disclosure under FOIA. I said, I understand that. I'm fully aware of that. But I want just something that can tell me that the incident happened. I said, what if I was to go out and talk about this incident? What are you going to do to me? He said, I don't think they'll do anything to you. So I left it at that. And now I'm out here talking about it. I'm not going to disclose everything. There's a lot more to this. I mean, I could sit here for 3.5 hours and detail some of the things we found in the investigation and some of the things that Billy and his sister and his mother that involved them, but I'm not going to do that. All I'm going to say is what happened, incident at Silver Bowl. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I suggest you do as much research as you can about Silver Bowl and see what you can find out.
If you like this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.